So this is a response to a video that just came out from PragerU by some lovely mixed African chick. I think she's half Nigerian, half white, and her mother was like white, and her father abandoned her or whatever. She's basically a Drake, but she defends anti-Christopher Columbus, which is very much Black Republican like stuff to do. I'm not surprised, but well, technically mixed Republican. But let's get into it.
In defense video, so this might become a series. In defense of Christopher Columbus, let's go. I posted a tweet today that said, "Don't let anyone gloss over or rewrite our history. Happy Columbus Day." And apparently that is...
Wow, that's very disgusting. That's like, I mean, how would you feel about it if in Germany, like, let's say 100 years ago, somebody had a happy Hitler Day, and then they'd be like, well, Hitler was a product of his time. I mean, he did, however, unite the German people, and he did make it to where our economy was united. He got us out of that horrible deal where Germany had high inflation. I mean, he did a lot of progressive stuff, and he was a socialist.
It's a very controversial statement. Here's why it's not controversial, because we don't get to judge historical figures from hundreds of years ago through the lens of modernity.
Why? I mean, if somebody was a famous rapist like 500 years ago and you're celebrating him, I can't bring up the fact that he was a rapist, and maybe we shouldn't celebrate a person who was a known rapist. And Christopher Columbus helped out with sex trafficking and rape. I mean, come on now. So I don't really get why we can't bring up the fact. And it's not even if there was a rapist. It's if they came to another country and started a universal sex trafficking ring where they brought back women from that country to be the pleasure toy of the whole of Europe, because that's what Christopher Columbus basically did. He brought back indigenous people to be the pleasure toy of the Europeans, and also introduced various disease and slavery to the Native Americans for decades. So that's basically what he did. He's not even a rapist. He's a sex trafficker.
And hundreds of years ago, through the lens of today, it doesn't quite make sense. It's actually very illogical. And if you were born at the same time as Christopher Columbus, you probably would have done the same things as Christopher Columbus.
So, I mean, if I was born in a country where ISIS was dominant, I would be like an ISIS soldier, most likely. But that doesn't mean we can't criticize people who are ISIS soldiers. Like, we know some people, they know no better, but they're still like doing like crime. Like, being ignorant of a law is not a defense for breaking the law. You realize that, right?
Columbus. Except I take that back, because the people in my comments calling Christopher Columbus a genocidal maniac would not have been able to do what he did. They would not have been able to lobby the Spanish government for years to go on this voyage with a ship full of men that sailed across the sea with nothing but their faith and a compass, when these men actively tried to mutiny against him on multiple occasions, then stumble upon the West Indies, meet two tribes of Indians, one that were extremely cannibalistic, and still carry through with one of the first...
By the way, I find it funny that she said they're extremely cannibalistic when Europeans was documented taking mummies from Egypt and eating them. But that's just me.
Diplomatic, political actions to ever take place in that land.
Wow, so he had a lot of struggle when it came to basically doing sex slavery and colonialism slavery. I am so impressed. It took a lot of effort to get them slaves. You couldn't run down 15 slaves by yourself. You couldn't. Bobby Lynch, he did it. Jim Crow, he did it. He ran down 15 slaves on foot by himself. He tackled them, tied them up, put them in the cart. I mean, you couldn't do that. Just because it was very hard for him to actually like be a slaver doesn't mean we should be impressed. Like, for real.
It would not have been.
Like nobody says, like when talking about UK colonialism, you couldn't come from a little small island distant from everybody and conquer half of the world. You couldn't. You couldn't. I mean, come on. You couldn't be raised in a farm just to terrorize and kill the natives. You couldn't.
Able to do that. And this is not to wipe away atrocities. Was Christopher Columbus a genocidal maniac? No. But did he commit the transgression?
I mean, you just wiped away a atrocity like that. I don't understand. I mean, denying he was a genocidal maniac is kind of wiping away the atrocity, isn't it? It's like me talking about Jeffrey Dahmer's and you say, you can't wipe away violence, the violence he did. Now, did he murder and rape people? No. Like what?
Of enslavement? Absolutely. Also, was it standard for nearly every single country and every single race that had ever existed at the time? Yes.
I could care less if it was standard. I mean, if it was standard to beat and rape your wife and somebody did that, I mean, I would still judge them heinously and disgustingly. I mean, it was standard back in the biblical days to sacrifice your children's lives, but we still judge the people who did that rather than the Israelites, right?
It still exists now, but you guys are louder about Christopher Columbus than you are about Libya, China, North Korea, and the United States.
I mean, are we really comparing countries, whole entire countries, to one fucking person? Like, of course the sins of one country will overshadow the sins of like one person. This is a stupid thing to compare. This is like me saying, you complain about that one guy running over that child, but you don't talk about the whole world and how it has high car accidents. Like, shit doesn't make sense.
States, but that's a topic for another video.
Yes, it's off the topic. It's a false equivalency. That's why it's not even a topic. It's a false equivalency at best.
So much more that I could say about Christopher Columbus, but this video is going to be a little bit too long. But what I want to do is a little experiment. Let's
just like mine.
Talk about other people that we put on a pedestal in our society and the transgressions that they've committed, and let's see if we hold the same energy for them as we do for Christopher Columbus. Mahatma Gandhi was famously racist towards black people, sexually abused young girls, and refused to help towards liberation of the untouchables in India. But
all of this was made after, like, all these claims are made after Mahatma Gandhi died. Like, it was written by people who are writing books. I don't trust anybody who's writing a book after somebody dies, because of course they're going to have to come out with scandalous material or else you wouldn't read it. So I wouldn't trust anything, any book that's a supposed biography after somebody dies. You wouldn't paint them as saints. You would paint them as devils. I mean, it's not really an interesting read if they said Mahatma Gandhi was 100% perfect and just pretty much the Jesus Christ of India. Like, I don't understand, like, why you even bringing this up. Jesus.
We're not going to judge him by modern standards, are we? Obama was extremely anti-gay marriage. Not going to judge him by modern standards.
Wasn't this guy the first president to actually be openly pro gay marriage? So it's kind of a moot point to even bring up. Like, come on.
Are we? Martin Luther King, anti-gay marriage, cheated on his wife, actively watched while a man raped another woman, laughed, and gave him advice. But
Jesus, that last one, I need a citation on. I heard all the rumors that he cheated on his wife. Very possible, but again, this was written after Martin Luther King dies. Of course, you're going to say all the scandalous stuff about somebody after they die. You have to move some books, right? Like, come on. It doesn't fit any benefit if you just go within the narrative and do not provide any dirt about somebody. Especially since they died. They can't defend themselves.
We're not going to cancel his holiday, are we? W.E. Du Bois, that civil rights activist that we all know and love, spent 5 years in Nazi Germany with the agreement that he would not say a word about the treatment of Jews that was happening in the country at the time. And when he got back, said that the hatred that German people had for Jewish people in Nazi Germany was completely reasonable. We are not just...
I'm sorry. I need to look that shit up. But I mean, people need to realize that back then nobody really cared about like ethnicities like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if like W.E. Du Bois didn't really care about Jewish people, because, you know, spending 5 years around like Germany, he would probably be fed a bunch of stories and a bunch of propaganda that him as a simple like human being like would probably feed into. So even though I didn't look that up, I'll just take that as true for now until I do some more further evidence.
Judging that by
But neither of these people actually, well, Martin Luther King has a day, but neither of these people actually have a celebrated federal holiday. So it's irrelevant to bring up Gandhi. He doesn't have a federal holiday. Nobody knows when the hell he was born. Neither W.E. Du Bois. He doesn't have a federal holiday. So it's kind of a mute point to even bring these people up.
modern day standards. And let's give a very real and present modern day example. While we are here subjecting Christopher Columbus to modern standards, we don't even subject our people to modern day standards. Look at the Middle East. In the Middle East, there are gay people.
You're not Middle Eastern. That's not your people. We don't even bring our people to standards. How is a half Nigerian, half white person connected in any way to the Middle East, and you live in America? Those are not your people.
Thrown off of buildings and women being subjugated on a daily basis. We're not holding them to...
We don't have Middle East Day where we just celebrate Middle Eastern people, where Middle Eastern people just get free ice cream and hot dogs. Of course, turkey hot dogs.
Modern standards. And again, if you were born in Christopher Columbus's time, you would be doing the same thing. You don't get to...
I mean, you just said we wouldn't be doing the same thing. We wouldn't petition like the Queen to actually go. Do you edit these videos? We wouldn't be doing the same thing. He went out of his way to enslave Native people. Like you mentioned this earlier. But anywho, I'm gonna just stop right here. I mean, she's really doing the Prager Negro bid very well. So, hey.